I was kind of hoping that we could kind of get into like the pros and cons of being a carnivore today as well. And I think this would be kind of a fun subject to touch on a little bit, but maybe you can run by a few. Let's start with the cons. So maybe you can run by a few cons and let us know what you think about that today.
I think a major con that a lot of people experience is that adaptation period where their body is getting used to digesting more protein and fat. And there's
Yeah.
a transition period for a lot of people where either they can't go or they're going way too much. So I would say, like, I know for a fact that's a big limiting factor for a lot of people in starting the diet. They're just so worried about that transition period.
Yeah.
And there are things you can do to kind of help ease that transition. But I would say that's a con. Like, you do have to transition, and it makes it in that way, it's more difficult to go on and off the carnivore diet because, like, when I was keto and I would go off keto for 6 months, I would have to retransition, right? If it was carnivore. So I would say
It is
that's,
not fun. I had a brutal transition. Yeah.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it's not fun. I had the nausea. I had the, just like all my symptoms were just amped up times 10 when I first started. But then once you get over that hump, I think that's why a lot of people quit right away, right? Because they think it's making them worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you have that kind of brutal transition as well?
I did not.
You didn't?
So
Okay.
my family calls me a garbage disposal. Like, I could literally digest anything,
Okay.
anytime, anywhere.
Yeah. Okay, so what else? So obviously the transition phase obviously is not fun for a lot of people, whether they want to call it keto flu or fat adaptation or whatever. But what else? What are some other cons to the diet?
Well, I know we were chatting a little bit before this, just the social aspect. I think for a lot of people, it's really difficult and it's very lonely because you've found kind of this radical way of eating that improves your health. And so you kind of want to proselytize it to people, but they think you are insane. And a lot
Yeah.
of people go through it alone and they don't have support in their homes.
Well, you know what I find pretty funny about it is like, yeah, you said it's radical, and we know it's not radical, but to everyone else, it is radical. So I was out to dinner a couple months ago, and my vegan friend was there. I have a lot of vegan friends because I'm in that world, right? But with because I have a fitness business, I don't look like it because I've lost so much weight over the years, but I have a fitness business, and in the fitness world, a lot of people are going vegan now. And I was out for dinner with one of them, and it's funny because people, were kind of looking at me. They're like, "Whoa, Scott's on this crazy carnivore diet. Oh my God!" But the vegan, not a word, right? That's completely socially acceptable now, right? Which is very weird because speaking from like an evolutionary standpoint, that was the norm. That's more evolutionarily consistent than a vegan diet, right? It's not like in the past people were, you know, passing up a deer for a head of broccoli, So, so that to me I find very weird how it's kind of turned itself over on its head, and I think there's a lot of misinformation propaganda out there and all that stuff, which I won't get into today. Maybe that's more of a discussion with Bart K. Um, but so do you find it very hard, like if you go to like eat with your friends or whatever, is this something that you feel like a lot of people are judging you on and like giving you shit for being on this diet?
No, I think anyone who's close to me knows that I am somebody who really likes to consume information and be
Mhm.
well informed about any decision I'm making. And so I don't think that they think it's a fad or a trend. I think they think I've looked into it and I know what I'm
Yeah.
doing. But also, I don't think it's that weird, especially now with like keto and stuff, for you to just order chicken wings at a restaurant
Yeah.
or to just order a steak. Like, it's not that weird if you just leave the vegetables on the plate. People might not even notice.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess it's kind of weird in the sense that like usually I'll sort of direct the waiter. I'll be like, just give me a steak with nothing on it. And they'll kind of be like, okay, and what else do you want with it? Nothing.
Do you
Like
have
no
butter?
vegetables? No, no. Just a steak, plain steak, no pepper, no salt. I'll put on the salt myself, And usually that weirds people out. But I'd say, I'll put this in the pro category. I think one of the most fun things about being a carnivore is being able to gross out your family and friends by eating organs. So I have a lot of fun with the organs. I'll break out the brain, I'll break out the kidney, I'll break out the thymus, and usually have a lot of fun with that, and grossing out my family and all that. So I'll throw that in
Yeah.
the pro category.
Yeah, I've
So
definitely enjoyed exploring organs too. I think it's
yeah,
like, I don't think it's necessary for a carnivore diet. I know that's argued between like nose to tail carnivores and non-nose to tail carnivores. But personally, I just like the variety and I like exploring the format.
yeah. Do you find that that might be like one of the cons of being a carnivore, is that there's kind of like these hierarchies of being a carnivore, in terms of like, if you're just a carnivore, you're not as like, I don't know what the word is for it. You don't get that sort of badge of honor that maybe the lion dieters get. If
Yeah.
you're eating dairy, then you know I've had that before. When I'll be like, oh, I reintroduced dairy, and people shit on me for it, and but I mean these like support groups and stuff. Have you seen that as well with yourself?
Yeah, I am not a fan of dogmatism. And I think we have kind of the same approach where we're like totally cool with whatever diet works for someone if it's helping them achieve health. Like, I totally don't judge what other people eat. Like, if it's making you live your best life, you go for it, girl. Like, I am here for it. But to me, it's a problem because like the carnivore diet is made up in the sense that there is no real definition for it. Like, if you were to look up the keto diet, there's a definition for that. You are in ketosis. Your body is running on ketones versus glucose. There's a solid definition for that. But when you go to carnivore, it's like a hyper carnivore in the wild is defined as eating 70% or more of their calories from animal products. That leaves 30% of their diet from whatever. So even if you're looking at like the technical definition of carnivore, it's almost unfair to say someone's less carnivore because they keep mustard in their diet or they eat a
Right.
handful of berries every few days. I don't see the purpose of that in terms of actually helping people achieve health. Do I think carnivore is powerful as an elimination diet and everyone should go through an elimination phase? Yes. But do I think if you reintroduce berries, you are no longer carnivore? No.
Hey, sorry about that, guys. So we had a doggy situation there, but so getting back into the cons of the carnivore diet. So, Lady Carnivory, tell me why you don't like the carnivore diet.
Yeah,
Totally kidding.
I think a lot of people find it very limiting. So they think it's just going to restrict them in their life, whether it be the variety of foods they're eating, their social occasions. Um, I think it's a big thing to take on it, or it seems like a big thing to take on, only eating animal products. But really, if you think about it, it's about doing less. Like, what is the least amount you can do for the most benefit? And I think a lot of us who had restrictions in the past, in the sense of, chronic pain, chronic illness, or even mental illness,
Mhm.
that's what's restrictive. Like, not being able to live your life is
Yeah,
restrictive. But when carnivore can give you your life back, it doesn't feel limiting anymore. It feels like freedom.
liberating. Yeah, exactly. Like people don't understand. Some people don't understand what it's like to live with that illness for so long, and and it's kind of funny what we consider to be restricting. And if people, if our ancestors had these animal products that we could just order and have shipped to our houses or go to the grocery store, they wouldn't be crying about that, saying it's restrictive. But when you have that liberation from illness, it's so worth it. But I'll say this, so do you find the carnivore diet a little bit boring? Are you like, do you get a little bit tired of only eating meat?
I don't.
You don't?
I I I feel like I started carnivore because I thought it would be easier than keto. I was tired of the meal prep on keto. So I was like, just meat, that sounds perfect. So in that sense, I'm kind of a lazy person. So it's been really great for me. But also, there were things that I missed. So I made carnivore versions of them. And I have a ton of recipes on my website if anyone wants to check them out.
Yeah, and you have awesome recipes. Are you a big fan of carnivore ice cream?
Yeah, I have a recipe for that. I think I liked my carnivore froyo better, but do you have a recipe?
No, I've tried the carnivore brownies. They were okay. I don't really change it up too much. I like, basically I live off my air fryer. I just, I pretty much see, like, I eat a lot of like lamb bacon, I eat like a lot of what else do I eat a lot of? Yeah, just a lot of lamb, a lot of steak, a lot of organs. I eat brain a lot. um, but I don't get too adventurous. I'd say the only way I get adventurous, maybe I'll change up my plating a little bit. Maybe I'll change up my salts. I have my variety of salts.
Have you tried Maldon?
What's that?
Maldon salt, the Saltic sea salt. It's like a
Oh
flaky,
yeah,
it's so
yeah,
good.
I have. Yeah, and I tried the a couple weeks ago. I tried this like volcanic salt. I've never tried that one before. That was interesting. I'll throw in some like Redmond salt or pink Himalayan, usually pink Himalayan. But that's where my fun really begins and ends. My Friday night, I'm trying to pick out my salts.
Yeah. It does simplify things in that way. It's like so much less effort and energy goes into, everything from meal planning, grocery shopping, meal prep. Everything is just easier on carnivore because you're just limited
Yeah,
to a few foods, which I get for some people seems limiting, but for me, like I can grocery shop for 2 weeks in like 10 minutes.
yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll say this: it's been fun for me reintroducing some foods. So foods that I couldn't really tolerate before, and now that I'm healing a bit more, to me that's like super exciting. Like I started binging on ghee recently. I could never
Mm.
tolerate ghee before. Now I'm just like it's all I eat. I just like eat it straight from the jar. It's great. So like little things like that I find pretty exciting. And I'm hoping to people probably, try to throw stones at me for saying this, but I am hoping to introduce plants at some point, you know. I don't know.
Yeah,
I do miss
I,
some plant foods.
yeah, I think um, that's a very interesting topic in the carnivore community, isn't it?
Yeah, is that maybe that
Like,
might be a con, right? People are,
yeah.
you're no longer in the group. You're no longer in the community if you a bit of broccoli with your lamb or whatever.
Okay, I will be honest with you. I will judge anyone who's like, I really miss broccoli. Like, you miss eating farts? Really? Is
Wow.
that really what you miss?
Okay, you got me there. I don't ever think I miss broccoli. I'm trying to think. Yeah, you know, I mean, do you ever get cravings? Like, if you see like some kind of plant food, I'm trying to think of one that I'm trying to think of a plant food I really miss. I can't think of anything. Oh, you know
It,
what? Maybe like some kind of nut butter. I do miss the nut butter sometimes.
cashews are my weakness, but
Cashews.
like, even thinking of just whole plants I would want to eat, like, I like roasted and salted cashews, but like plain cashews don't really do it for me. Or
Right.
even like I was such a potato eater before going carnivore, like
Mm,
potato chips, anything
yummy
potato really.
oxalates.
Yeah, right. But it's like, do I like just plain white potato? No, I like it with butter and I like it with salt. Like those are the good
Yeah,
things, the butter and the salt.
that's a really good point. I don't know if there's any plant foods I like just on their own. I've never
I
thought of that before.
I do like berries.
Oh, yeah, fruit, I guess, is sort of different from that.
Yeah.
But I would never eat something like zucchini or I can't think of any plant foods that I would eat just on their own. Whereas meat, I could just easily eat on its own. I do
Yeah.
like salt on my meat, but
Mhm.
either way is good with me. But so do you stray from the diet at all? You're very strict with the diet?
Uh, so at various times, like when I first started carnivore 3 months in, I fell off the wagon hard. It was Easter and we had our family's like cheesy potato recipe.
Oh no.
Yeah, the
Okay,
potatoes got me.
right.
So that was a big enough event for me that my mental health issues immediately came back. And I was like, I can't live like this anymore. Like, I know that there's freedom in eating carnivore. So, in that sense, it was really good that I fell off that wagon so hard.
Yeah.
And then for a long time, like when I first started carnivore, when I was transitioning in, I kept like some berries, some nuts, some avocado, and then mustard and hot sauce for a really long time.
Hmm.
And I felt like that just helped me transition and kept food palatable. Now I'm like happy with ground beef, and it's so weird to look back on that. And then I was doing like cashews as a quote unquote planned cheat, like once a month or something, but it was never what I wanted it to be. I think you hype it up in your mind, and then when you actually have that experience, it's not as fulfilling as you hyped it, and it just wasn't worth it to me anymore.
Yeah. In the beginning, I found it very hard to be strict. So I was using a lot of stevia because I needed that sweet taste still at the time. And I was like a drug addict with my nut butters. I'll be honest with you. I would like, seriously, I'm not even kidding. Like when I was first, I think it may have been die off. I was getting those die off reactions. I was getting insane cravings. So I would go to
Mhm.
like Trader Joe's at 9 p.m. and get my sunflower butter. And I would get it, I just get a spoon. I just go there, get a thing of sunflower butter, get one of those plastic spoons from behind the desk, literally sit in my car and just eat my sunflower butter.
I'm not
Right.
laughing at you.
And
I'm
I
just
would eat the
relating really
entire,
hard.
almost the entire jar of it, like a crazy person. Right.
Yeah, I
So
feel you.
that was in the beginning, even though I was already seeing the health benefits from carnivore right away. I couldn't, I felt like at the time I just couldn't help myself, you know? So yeah, it's interesting. So what do you mostly eat now then? So what can you just like run down a day in the life of Lady Carnivory in terms of your diet?
Yeah, so it's been different recently with autoimmune issues I've been experiencing. Um, but like typically for me now, I'll have eggs and bacon for breakfast.
Mhm.
And then I normally do 2 meals a day for no reason other than that seems to be what my body prefers. I prefer eating earlier in the day. So I'll eat from like when I get up at 7 until 1 at the latest.
Mhm.
And again, that's for no reason other than that seems to be when my body is hungry. So I'll have breakfast, eggs and bacon or sausage or some sort of like fatty pork. And then for lunch, typically I'll have some sort of beef or ruminant meat. I've been eating a lot of goat recently.
Oh, I love goat. Yeah.
It's so good. And
Goat bacon.
I haven't tried that.
No,
Oh, that's
okay.
and I had a friend who gifted me a bunch of deer meat, so I've been eating
Oh,
that
dear
too.
meat. Nice.
I know,
Okay.
good friend.
Yeah. Where do you get your meat from? Do you just buy it at the grocery store? Or do you get it from like a farm or?
So typically, I get it from grocery stores. I travel a lot. I think I was looking back at this year, and I've spent over 6 months living out of a suitcase. And so
Mhm.
sometimes I'm just limited to whatever my host is near. And a lot of times that's conventional beef. But I think that's really powerful because I have had a lot of health benefits, even though I'm not necessarily pursuing grass fed finished every time. When I
Okay.
have the option, I like to participate in regenerative agriculture. I think
Mhm.
that's really important for us to help the ecosystem in that way. But beyond that, I don't really have, I don't prefer grass fed finished because it tastes grassy to me. Maybe that's controversial. I don't know.
Okay, that is actually the first time I've ever heard that. It tastes
It's
grassy.
like,
So let's get into another fun question here. So, what content do you like to listen to in terms of the carnivore diet? Do you have any like favorite carnivores?
yeah, this is such a hard question for me. I am somebody who's easily influenced, so I try not to consume a lot of content because then
Okay.
I feel like it's coming out in my content, and I never want to feel like I'm stealing something or stealing ideas. But there are definitely people I really enjoy following. I like following really small accounts of like
Okay.
just regular people trying to make it through day to day.
Mhm.
We've talked a bit about Bart K. I think he's a ton of fun.
Yeah.
Like I think he's off-putting to a lot of people, but it's like he's self-aware. Like he knows that he is being this extreme character, and that's what I love about him and the community that he's grown.
He's kind of
And
like the
then
Simon Cowell of the carnivore. Like he's a comedian. He's really, really funny. Like I
he
like he's the
is.
only carnivore I listen to that I just burst out laughing every time I listen to him. He's really harsh, but he that sense of humor is lost on some people, I think.
Yeah, I do think, the carnivore space can be very serious.
Yeah.
It can be really serious.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
people do kind of hold their way of eating really close to them.
Like a
Like they,
religion. It's like a
yeah,
religion. Yeah.
like the lion dieters versus the liver eaters versus the honey people. Like
Yeah.
it's just like whatever you do, it seems like people get really passionate about it. So they can become very defensive when they hear somebody making light of it. But in that sense, I think, people like Bart K. and like meme pages even on Instagram are really important in the sense that, back in medieval times, we had jokers, and their purpose was to make fun of the king and kind of keep them in check and make them more self-aware. So I think we need more of that in the community, because I just see so much toxic positivity and people being like, well, you shouldn't shame someone for that. And it's like, well, we need humor. We need, even like graveyard humor is important in terms of dealing with death. So why would humor not be important with dealing with health?
Absolutely, yeah. And so who do you find to be annoying in the carnivore community? I know we touched a little bit on Paul Saladino. Does he annoy you, or are there some other ones that you find pretty irritating?
Yeah, but I mean, Paul annoys me again, not because of the way he eats, but because he tells other people they have to eat his way.
Right.
So anyone who kind of aligns with that, I would also say I find them annoying. And then there's just this, you're gonna get me in trouble. There's a certain group of people who just really push this, it's toxic positivity where it's all like rainbows and sunshines, and this is the way for you to achieve carnivore health, the
Yes.
like
Thank you.
shredded abs in 2 weeks. And it's like, no, for a
Yes.
lot of us, it's the long game. We're not
Oh
going to
my
get
God.
shredded abs in 2 weeks. Our health conditions will not disappear in 1 month. Some of us do need coaching and extra help or even supplements to get to our goals. And so to see people just, and I do carnivore coaching. And so I have clients who have come to me from those groups of people that now have serious issues because they bought into this. I don't know. I don't know how to
I
say it
no,
without
I
saying it.
100% know where you're coming from, and I'm so thankful that you brought that up because I experienced that myself, and I'm sure you have as well, and a lot of people you know. And when you go on these things, I'm not saying that like I don't want to critique these channels or critique these groups. They've been very helpful. I could say like, I'm part of like the Lion Diet group on Facebook, but you do hear a lot of these stories about people who just then they'll rave about it, oh, like the first week I went on the carnivore diet, all my health issues went away and I'm into bodybuilding and I feel great and this is great. And that's all you hear about. You never hear about like I went carnivore and I felt like I was going to die for 2 months until I finally got over all the die off and transition and the electrolyte issues and the fat adaptation and everything else that goes into it. Right. Um, and there's definitely like a huge component of people like me out there who have gone on it and we're so discouraged because all we hear about are these like immediate health, amazing success stories.
And it makes
um
you feel like you're wrong, like there's something wrong with you
yeah.
because everyone else is getting these benefits so quickly. Or, they're doing these rolling 48 fasts and they're losing all this weight. But if you don't have that experience, it makes you feel like the failure.
Oh
When
my
really,
God.
what is failing you is the community and being transparent and honest about what their carnivore experience is.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not the only person who's done this, but yeah, with the fasting component as well is really huge in the carnivore diet. And if you're really sick and like if you're severely underweight, like I was even worse. If you think I'm bad now, you should have seen me like a year ago, right? But when I first started the carnivore diet, I felt almost like I had to fast because it's what everybody was doing in the community, even though I was like, I weighed nothing and I was severely malnourished. And I'm like, I'm going to do a 48-hour fast. Yeah, well, 32 hours into it, I passed out and I thought I was going to die. Right. And people are like, 32 hours. And like, I actually put that in the group. They're like, 32 hours, that's nothing. I could do that in my sleep. I'm
Oh,
like, well, I get that, but you're not, everyone's very different.
yeah.
Someone might be very sick. Some people might be very malnourished, and doing fasting like that can be extremely dangerous for them. So I don't like this whole um, aura that some people, you know, convey to this world of, oh, you go carnivore, everything's going to be healed. You're just going to automatically be healthy and um, whatever else. Like all you have to do is eat beef and salt and you'll be good. Like that was not the case for me. It took a lot of work in terms of trying to figure out electrolytes and everything else. So is that something that you see a lot of with your coaching and stuff? Is that like a huge problem for you? Do people come to you like just feeling like I just want to give up because I'm seeing everyone else getting better and I still feel like shit?
Yeah, I think more than anything, people just feel like frustrated because they feel like they're failing at it. So I'll have people come to me and they'll tell me what they're eating in a day. And to me, it sounds perfect. Like they're eating eggs and bacon for breakfast. They're eating chicken for lunch. They're eating steak for dinner. And they're like, I just can't get OMAD down. Like, it's so hard for me to eat one meal a day. And I'm like, how do you feel? And they're like, I feel amazing on carnivore. And I'm like, then OMAD doesn't matter.
Yeah,
And it's just,
exactly.
it's amazing to me that in this community, it's kind of like what you were talking about before, like some levels of carnivore are considered like better than others, when really it's like there's no perfect carnivore diet. Like I said before, this whole thing is made up.
Hmm.
There's only the perfect carnivore diet for you.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Sorry, I gotta fix my screen here. Yeah, so I guess we got into a lot of the cons. Well, we sort of turned it over into the pros as well. But so, what do you think are the biggest pros to doing the carnivore diet, just in
So
general?
yeah, I did mention this earlier, but I am a very lazy person, and it just
Right.
it makes it's like living on easy mode, because in addition to all the like actual food stuff like meal planning, grocery shopping, meal prepping, all of that, there's also all of the added benefits. Like I told you, I had dandruff before carnivore. Now I don't have dandruff, so it's like that's one less step in my day when I'm washing my hair. I don't have to use dandruff shampoo anymore. And it's
Yeah.
like a lot of those little things just adding up over time. I used to have really acne prone skin, and now my skincare routine that was 20 steps is now maybe 2 steps if I'm feeling like washing my face. So it's everything building up that makes it feel like you're living life on easy mode versus
Hmm.
before, and you don't even realize it until these things start going away and you're like, oh, I don't use dandruff shampoo anymore. Oh, my skin is clear for the first time in my adult life and I didn't even have to do anything for it.
Yeah. Do you feel like since you've gone carnivore, you feel more in line with just nature? And it's weird, I started like changing my mindset about everything, right? And Paul Saladino's like touched on this. It's like I try to think to myself, how would our ancestors have lived? How did we live for millions of years without before the advent of like shampoo and some girls will say makeup or using toothpaste and like stuff like that. Like, do you feel yourself kind of falling more in that line of thinking as well?
Yeah, I think we have made our environment so toxic to us that there is definitely, I think a lot of people desire that alignment back with nature. And you see this in a lot of people who get into biohacking. I would love to go on a rant about this if you would let
Yes,
me.
please
Okay.
biohack rant away.
So there are some biohacks I truly believe are helpful.
Mhm.
And I'm going to use the example of grounding. So a lot of people use grounding or earthing as a biohack because they say it depletes excess electrons in their body by standing on the ground barefoot. And do I think that there is huge benefits to being out in nature? Yes, I feel great when I go out in nature. I think that there's something really primal and natural about it. Can I say whether or not I believe in grounding? No. But the thing I find interesting about biohacks, and I was thinking about this recently in terms of sleep, like I see these people coming up with, optimization strategies for sleeping where they wear blue block glasses and they have their room completely darkened and it's temperature controlled and they have like EMF blockers surrounding the room. And to me, it's interesting because if we were primal, if we were natural, like you would not be in a fully dark situation. Like if you did not live in a cave, you probably have stars outside. If you're in a warm environment, you're not going to be able to have a temperature controlled room. And so I think that there's a point where biohacking is helping you, and then there's like this pivot point where it's like, okay, now you're just like over optimizing, and no one ever could have lived like this in the history of humankind until now, and you spending tens of thousands of dollars on this versus you could just buy a tent and sleep outside and that would be primal. too. Sorry.
That's no, that's a very good point. It's funny. I see, as much as I like to talk about nature and stuff like that, I couldn't live without my social media and Netflix and all that stuff. I'm like, I listen to YouTube podcasts all day long. That's all I do. But it's funny when I hear people like, and I hate to shit on Paul Saladino. A lot of people show, especially Barkay, but it's funny when you see these people kind of living out in the jungle and they're like these social media gurus, right? It's kind of like it's a bit ironic. But I do feel like I feel more at peace when I'm sort of like more in touch with nature than I was before, you know. And it's funny because before I didn't even know what nature was. I thought that eating my almond flour pancakes and eating my Beyond Burgers was more in touch with nature than eating my beef. So it's kind of funny how that's kind of been turned on its head lately. So you look pretty young to me. So I mean, is this something that and maybe you haven't really thought this through, it's probably not something you think about, but um, do you think that this is going to be a diet that you'll sustain for the long term or the rest of your life? Or are you kind of planning on just doing this for a certain amount of time?
It is an interesting question, and I have thought about it. I think that I am young in terms of the people who are into carnivore. Like, if you look at the demographic of carnivores, I would say it skews slightly older. And my theory for this is that those people have had a longer period of time to develop chronic illnesses, pain, mental health issues. For me, I had mental health issues from a very young age and was able to experience the benefits of carnivore at a young age.
Hmm.
And so I know what it was like to be trapped in my mental illness. So as long as carnivore keeps working to keep that as bay, I will continue to do carnivore. Does that mean I'll never introduce anything back in? I don't know. Any attempts I've had at reintroductions have not gone well. I do come from a history of eating disorders, and so I think to a certain extent, I'm still kind of mentally working through that aspect of it. And so, like for me, I'm a carb addict. I cannot eat carbs and then stop eating carbs. I will
Hmm.
eat all of the carbs, and I have to abstain from them for now. Um, with time, will that change? Maybe. I don't know, but I wouldn't be mad if I had to be carnivore for the rest of my life, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, especially if you're feeling better, right? That's the main thing. But so um I know that you've had some flare-ups again with your autoimmune condition, but are you still mostly feeling better? And are you sort of questioning things more that you've had that flare up in terms of changing things up? Or are you planning on just staying the course? Like, where are you planning on going from here?
Yeah, that is an interesting question too. I think, you know, in moments of extreme pain and discomfort, we kind of question everything. I do think that looking back, carnivore held this flare up at bay for a really long time for me. And it was only a combination of a lot of different factors
Mhm.
that was able to kind of override the carnivore benefits. Um, I have no intention of not being carnivore.
Mhm.
The literature I've seen still says, carbs and insulin are bad for inflammation. And so if my body is inflamed, I want to keep that as low as possible. I
Mhm.
was telling you earlier that I had just this morning learned about more about vitamin A toxicity and how that might be a contributing factor to what I'm going through. So I'm definitely like open to playing with different levers and changing up what I'm eating or how I'm eating or the ratios of what I'm eating. But yeah, to your point, it did make me question everything. I was
Yeah.
like, what have I messed up so badly? But it was factors outside of carnivore. It was under eating. I have antibodies that show I was infected with some sort of virus, even though I was never sick. And then if the vitamin A toxicity is true, it also kind of aligns with what I experienced.
Mhm.
So I'm interested to kind of explore that as well.
Yeah. So can you tell me what sort of like life is like on the other side of feeling better? Like, are you like, a lot of people talk about having this kind of spiritual awakening, right? When they've been sick for so long and then they make it to the other side. Do you just feel like, like how's life changed for you? Like, do you just feel like life is completely different now on your good days, or
Yeah, I feel like, for so long I told myself that I would be confident when. Like, I'll be confident when I lose weight. I'll be confident when I can figure out the meds that'll control my mental illness. And it wasn't until like I went carnivore, it was like, no, the confidence is inherent. It's not an external factor imposed on me. It's me just having this alignment within myself. So I think that's what carnivore did for me. It gave me a lot of confidence and alignment with who I am. And I think a lot of that comes from you are not so focused on just your day-to-day management of your pain or your mental illness. So you then are able to kind of like focus on you and figure out who you are and what you want out of life.
yeah. And I think that that suffering, all that suffering that you went through for so long, obviously contributed a lot to the person that you are. And you seem like a very confident person, despite your age. I mean, to me, I don't know, maybe you just look a lot younger than you are, but,
I'm
but
28.
you're 28. So, I mean, to me, that's very young. But, you seem like a very confident person. You have a good head on your shoulders. I always like to have people on my channel because everyone I've talked to has been like insanely intelligent. I don't know why they agree to talk to me, but anyway. But so do you have any regrets of having gone through all that suffering that you've gone through? Or do you sort of see it in the respect of like, this is what's made me who I am, and this is why I'm a stronger person? Or would you
Yeah,
take it back if you could?
I definitely feel like I've always been kind of into stoicism. Obstacles the way, any sort of conflict we come across in life does build us in some way, whether it be good or bad. Um, so I guess in that sense, I wouldn't take it back. But a huge part of my platform and my goal with my platform is to get the word out. Never once in years of therapy and being medicated for my mental illness and my chronic pain did anyone mention to me that nutrition might be playing a factor. And
Yeah,
so for me, I just think of like how different would my life have been if I had learned about this when I was 15 before I started medication.
yeah,
And if I can be that voice on a rooftop for someone, if I can be one person's reason for starting carnivore, that would be like, that would just mean the world to me.